I have a very small foot size. Shoes are almost impossible to find, I mean adult shoes. Not children's slippers or sandals. That is, it is possible to find shoes, but they also need to be beautiful. When your feet are wearing something light, comfortable and beautiful, your gait changes, your mood changes, the world around you changes. The easier you run down the street, the brighter you run through life itself. And one day I got some absolutely magical shoes that greatly changed my destiny. I found them in an online shoe store in Moscow. These were definitely MY shoes. Velvet, blue, with 2 drops of rhinestones on a narrow bow above the high heel. The last pair is MY size. I was happy. They took my order, called me back, and I went to pick them up from the warehouse myself. The next day I went to a reception at the British Embassy, wearing a long dress with a slit, an updo and new shoes. Unexpectedly, but feasible, I went there as a companion of my brother, who worked at the Russian Embassy in London. He was currently in Moscow and was invited to a reception. Every girl dreams of one day being a princess and going to a ball. I had already reached the age of 26, and I still wanted it. The reception was wonderful, lots of lights, champagne in sparkling glasses, flowers, live music, gallant gentlemen. I felt like Cinderella in a fairy tale world. I danced, laughed, talked to the men dancing with me in their native language, and it was amazing. I especially liked Mark, the tall, dark-eyed young man who invited me to the second dance. He was a man of few words, smiled more and was silent, listening to my imperfect English, but he seemed to understand everything, and he liked everything. We danced with him several times, and my brother, coming up to me between dances, said that Mark was working with him in London and was considered a very promising groom there. I didn't intend to get married, but I was pleased to respond with a glance and a smile to Mark's views. The reception ended not at all as rosy as it began. Already going down the street after the end of the holiday, I turned back on the stairs. I wanted to find Mark with my eyes and say goodbye to him. Suddenly, I awkwardly twisted my ankle and flew down the steps, beautifully and loudly. I suddenly lost my right shoe, the heel was broken off, and I also broke my right ankle. The doctor in the ambulance put me in a splint and said my leg would be in a cast for a couple of months. I tore my dress, lost my shoe, and I never said goodbye to Mark. I burst into tears, more from resentment than from pain. My brother flew to London, and I was left at home alone, hobbling around the apartment with a crutch if I suddenly needed something. A week later, my brother sent me photos from the reception. Mark and I were there, beautiful, in the light of candles and lanterns, and I smiled and was happy. Then, but not now. Now it felt like I had returned to my stepmother's house and again turned into poor Cinderella. My leg healed quickly. When the doctor told me that my cast would be removed in a week, I wanted to jump for joy. I posted my photos from the reception on social networks. The girlfriends quickly responded to them, and everyone began asking about the dress and shoes. I opened the box where my lonely beautiful left shoe lay, and suddenly thought that it would be nice to find exactly the same shoes, or at least one for my right foot, and I started searching on the internet. The shoes were nowhere to be found. I was so desperate that I even posted a message on social networks that I was looking for the right shoe for Cinderella's foot. I really wanted to go to the ball. My brother immediately wrote, laughed at me kindly, joked that as soon as I could walk, he would invite me to his place in London, and there I would buy myself any other shoes. But I said that I don't want any others. I want these. And I continued my search. By that time, my cast had already been removed and I dreamed of putting shoes on again with my restored velvet dress. But the shoes were still not there. But then one day I received a message from an unfamiliar recipient. His page was closed. He asked me, "Is this what I'm looking for?" Attached to the message were photos of my shoes. This, I answered him with trembling, and began to wait for him to write to me. And I received his new message, "Where should I bring them to you?" I told him my address and he replied that he would arrive in an hour. God, what a long hour it was. I managed to wash my hair and change clothes twice for him. A girl waiting for such shoes must be a princess. And then the doorbell rang, and I opened the door. Mark stood on the threshold, with a bouquet of roses, and with a box in his hands. I couldn't say a word. I just silently led him into the hallway. Mark handed me a bouquet and sat me down on the sofa. And then I opened the box and took out my blue lost shoe. One, on the right leg. "Excuse me, Cinderella?" he said with a strong accent, and put an almost crystal slipper on my foot. Looks like this is your size. So, princess, is it you?" "So it's me," the newly minted princess answered him, and her heart began to pound and thump like large palace cannons during the coronation. "It's so good that I found you," said Mark, and like a real prince he kissed my hand. I was curious to know how he found me and how he ended up with a whole shoe. And then one day, when we were walking along the narrow streets of London, he took me to a small workshop and said that my broken shoe was made right here. On that ill-fated evening, he picked up the remains of my shoe. He clutched them in his hands, standing on the steps and watching me go, and then ordered a copy here. Well, finding me on the internet was as easy as shelling pears. My brother saw Mark almost every day. Mark thought for a long time about how to give me the copy he made, and then I wrote that I wanted to become Cinderella and find my glass slipper. I didn't even think that I would eventually find my prince. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you liked it, please like and subscribe to our channel to be the first to hear about our next story.